Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and the reason why I'm coming in front of you guys today is to talk about the Sonos S2 12.0.3 update that just got launched by Sonos on the 28th of July. The Sonos Arc soundbar was plagued with a couple of problems, one of them being the boomy bass and the other being the high-end treble being too sharp and too metallic since the launch in June. We don't know whether it's the S2 app causing it or whether there are hardware issues within this guy itself. I've done a few videos covering this topic as well as whether S2 platform was causing problems with the other Sonos speakers. I'll link them all up here. You can take a look in your free time. But today, specifically, I want to talk about what 12.0.3 does for your Sonos Arc. To skip to the conclusion, I will tell you nothing. It's a little bit disappointing, but let me explain why I say nothing and why I say it shouldn't matter and why I will say that actually there might be a solution to this whole thing. So what I did this time around to test it out is that before I did the firmware update to 12.0.3, I did a frequency response test for the Sonos Arc without the sub, without the surrounds. And after I did the update, I tested it again, of course without the sub and without the surround, and without TruePlay done, everything is being turned off. It's like what you'll get, the experience that you'll get when you unbox this guy fresh out of the box. And if you look at the frequency response curve that I'm going to be posting up here, you will notice that there is actually very little difference. So you might be asking, then what did 12.0.3 do for the Sonos Arc? Now, 12.0.2 was actually available as an update maybe about 3 weeks ago, but it was an app update. It was an update to your software on the phone from 12.0.1 to 12.0.2, but there was no corresponding 12.0.2 update for the firmware. So with 12.0.3, the update was applied to the firmware in the speakers as well. So I can only imagine that there are some changes within the speaker, but the frequency response curve shows otherwise. Then I thought about it, maybe because the frequency response moves through all the frequencies in very quick succession and every note is played at the same volume. So when it goes past the whole spectrum, it doesn't stress the speaker enough, right? Because it only needs to play each frequency, each note once, and then it moves on. So it doesn't stress this guy as much. So I thought, maybe let's get back to the frequency testing at 40 Hz and 50 Hz to see whether it replicates the problem or not. While I did that, and to cut the long story short, to put out this video quick on a weekday, I will tell you the problem persists. So at 40 Hz, there's still some rattling. At 50 Hz, the bass is still a little bit wobbly. So nothing changed. I don't think the problem was fixed here. So I thought maybe just listen to the music again. So some of you, if you watched my previous video, I was actually quite tied up with the Blue Sound Pulse 2i speaker. I was playing around with it quite a bit, trying to learn the Blue OS ecosystem. So I neglected the Sonos guys a little bit. So when I went back to the testing just now, after I upgraded all the firmware, I didn't redo TruePlay. I left everything as it is, right? And I put back the soundbar because I had to remove it from its original position to put the Blue Sound speaker in its place. When I moved this Sonos Arc back into position, I placed it right under the projector screen and I started playing some music. And when I played the music, I was like, hey, this actually sounds different. It sounds good. And I thought, did I leave the subwoofer on? I checked. No, I did not leave the subwoofer on. So where is this smooth, even bass coming from? So I discovered two things. First, when I put the Arc back, I actually mounted it, placed it very, very close to the back wall, right? So we know that sound, especially bass frequencies, are reinforced by the corners of the room as well as a hard wall behind the speaker placement. So when I did that, I accidentally did that, by the way. What I'm doing is I'm using the room, the surrounding, the environment to boost the bass output from the Sonos Arc. Then you don't have to actually boost or rely on the speaker drivers and the small speaker drivers here so much to deliver the bass that you need. You can make use of the room. And then it dawned upon me, right? Maybe we were all along asking too much from these guys here. Now, these guys' high frequencies are sharp, they're great, but Sonos needed that to direct the sound around the room. This is not a soundbar for music. Soundbars are for TVs, soundbars are for movies, soundbars are meant to be paired with a sub. So soundbars are great at mid-range, soundbars are great at high frequencies to be able to help direct sound so that you get an impression of the surround coming from all around you, right? It has to move the sound. The bass duties are supposed to be relegated to the sub. So if you were just using the Sonos Arc on its own, it's not that you can't, but you've got to do something creative. So what I did was to move this Arc right against the wall, right? If you look at the back of the Arc, you'll see that it's flat. It is actually meant to be mounted. I should get the wall mount to try this out and I'll report in. What the wall mount does is that it deactivates some of the bass, but maybe I don't want that, right? I want the bass to be boosted by the back wall. So I'm flushing this whole unit back up against the wall to try to use the wall to increase and reinforce the bass frequencies that are coming out from the Arc. So maybe that's why I had the impression that, hey, actually the bass is not sounding too shabby at all. So let me repeat, the bass is sounding better, but I do not think it is a function of the S2 update to the OS or to the firmware. All right? Because I tested the frequency response curve and I tested the 40 Hz and the 50 Hz tone. The problem seems to be still there, but the sound instantly transformed when I placed it back up against the wall. Right? The second thing I noticed is that I usually don't go too high on volume when it comes to playing music or even TV because I don't live in a big place, so I don't want to be disturbing neighbors. I share this wall behind me with a neighbor and I don't want to be disturbing the rest of the household as well. So I don't turn it very high. But I realized that to get to my normal volume, I suspect, I don't remember properly, I actually suspect that I have to raise the volume a little bit more after the 12.0.3 update. Now, if that is true, what it is actually telling us is that Sonos started to recognize that maybe they shouldn't be pushing these guys' drivers or the amps too hard. And they're pulling down the peaks, they're pulling down the frequency response, right? Making the bar a little bit softer. So the effect that I got, right, is that overall the volume goes down. They're not pulling down the volume of the whole bar because that will end up you just boosting everything up. But maybe the more problematic frequencies at the highest and at the lowest, they're pulling it down while maintaining the mid-range. I don't know about that. In the frequency response sweep, it doesn't show up. But the frequency response sweep plays every frequency once and it sweeps through the whole curve. In a normal movie or when you're listening to music, everything comes in together at once. So they will look at all the frequencies and they will compute instantaneously and try to figure out what is the best curve to deliver to you for all the sounds that you're going to be hearing all at once, not just one test tone. So if I were to guess what Sonos did this time round for 12.0.3 was to actually reduce the amplitude, the power, the volume of the problematic frequencies. And what this resulted was a bass that is slightly more even and slightly sounding more like a sealed subwoofer than how a ported subwoofer sounds like. A sealed subwoofer may be a little bit slower. A ported is fast, is great for high dynamic range in the movies. A sealed subwoofer is better for music where the dynamic peaks and troughs aren't that wide and is a little bit more compressed as compared to the explosions and the dialogue and the quiet scenes in a movie that swings very fast up and down, right? So it sounds a little bit quieter. The bass is not as strong, but it is smoother and more even, right? So if you couple these two things together, right? Sonos bringing the bass levels down a little bit and tempering it just a tiny smidge, and we pushing the soundbar back against the wall to make use of your environment to boost the bass and not depend on just the amp and the drivers to deliver the bass to you, then we might have a solution to great sound. And as you can see, there's no environment backing here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to push this guy right against the wall and I do a recording, and I will end off the video with that sound. So before I go and leaving you with this short demonstration of how to use our environment to make the Sonos Arc sound better and to overcome its shortcoming, I'm responding to one of my viewers saying that, hey, maybe we can do a video to show how to place the Sonos Arc or any Sonos speakers for the matter within your room for the bass effect. So I've queued up that video for production. If you're keen in such a video, please do consider subscribing to my channel, ring the notification bell so that you'll be notified when that video drops. I'll see you in my next video.
The mic is muted.
Oops, I'm just trying to move it, and you hear the difference for yourself when this guy is backed up against the wall.